another episode of Getting Unstuck with Misfits Unplugged, the podcast that celebrates the journey of career rebels who have overcome challenges, blazed their own paths, and came out of the other side winning. Today, we have Liz Walker, business coach and anti-capitalist entrepreneur. She helps women of color, service-based, impact-driven entrepreneurs create a thriving business by helping them do business their way and learn how to ignore most of the nonsense in the online business space. She defines coaching as thought partnership with clients, where sessions unlock the blocking keeping them stuck. These sessions are not for advice, but if the coach is doing most of the talking, something's gone wrong. So without fail, we're going to jump in to get to know Liz and some more of her coaching business and about how you got here. So welcome, Liz, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So Liz, how did you go on this path to entrepreneurship? Can you share with us like some of the beginning phases and then what led you on this path specifically?
Sure. It's a long story, but I'll try to keep it short and sweet. So I started on this journey, as probably quite a few of us did, back in 2020. So I was with the 2020 cohort of online entrepreneurs. And at the time, pre-pandemic, I had just quit this toxic HR job that I was working in higher ed. It was the first time that I had actually quit a job without actually having a safety net in place. So I was really freaked out, actually. I thought to myself, I'm just going to take a few months off and just take some time to get some space. And then I'll just find another HR job. It's fine. And then the pandemic hit. And then once the pandemic hit, I found myself out of work for about 6 months and I was freaked out. Like, I am Capricorn sun. If you're into astrology, you know that I'm just work. My whole life is just like, you need to be working. So I had all this time in this space for the first time, and I was very uncomfortable, but I also knew I wanted to take this time to actually figure out what it is I wanted to do, because I had done HR my entire career, like right out of college. And I never really thought to myself, what is it that I actually want to do? I always thought to myself, what's going to make me money? How can I get a job quickly enough? So I decided to just do some exploring. You kind of take those personality tests. You try and look to figure out what it is that you want to do. And in the meantime, I had refound YouTube. So I used to be like super obsessed with YouTube, especially with like the black hair care and like trying to figure out how to get my curls back when I did not have locks. And so I was obsessed with YouTube back then. So I came back to it and I stumbled upon this creator. Her name was like Evelyn from the internet. So Evelyn of the internet. I don't know if you've heard of her, but I loved her content. And the video that I found was talking about being fun employed. And so she had basically taken a year off of work to just be creative. And there was like the first time I actually encountered someone doing that, especially someone who looked like me. And I was just like, wow, like this opened up a whole new world for me. And I thought to myself, I like YouTube. Maybe I could do YouTube videos. Like, I've always had a knack for public speaking and I wanted to help people. I volunteered in the past for different nonprofits who were about trying to help and uplift the Black community. So I thought YouTube could be a space where I could express myself and have some fun and give back. So I started a YouTube channel, and eventually you start a YouTube channel. It's not long before you're getting the videos about, well, don't you want to grow? Like, now you have a YouTube channel. Don't you want to get 1,000 subscribers and get monetized? So I found this course that was supposed to help me grow my channel. And in that course, you get introduced to the idea of, oh, and you can start a business with this too. It's just as simple as creating an email list and you stick the link in the description box. And I thought, oh, it's that easy. I can do this. So I decided to start a business, and surprise, surprise, I did not go viral as I had anticipated. And it took a while for me to kind of find my voice. What ended up happening was I got introduced to a program through a Facebook ad, and it was by this Black woman who was a coach who had a program that was just for women of color, and it was talking about being like a revolutionary entrepreneur and doing things your way versus the way that capitalism tries to tell us to grow our business, or that white supremacy culture tries to tell us to grow our business. So that was the first place where I was actually able to really find my voice and find community among other women of color. So that was really, I'd say, the turning point for me, where I was like, okay, I'm doing this my way and I'm going to create a thriving business and I want to help other people as well. So I started on that path, and I first was helping people with YouTube because that's what I knew. I was like, okay, well, what can I actually build a business around? What can I help people with? And I was like, okay, I know YouTube, so I can help people with YouTube, understand keyword research, things like that. But then as I was bringing in clients, I realized that they actually didn't give a crap about YouTube. They actually just wanted to make more money in their business. And I was like, oh, well, if I actually want to help you with what you actually want, I'm going to need to actually like help you, like get some additional skill set in to help you. And so that's when I realized, okay, I want to get like trained as a coach and to really understand how I can better help folks. And that's really where I began to understand that like our like mind how important mindset work is. It's not everything, but it still is important, and there's an aspect to it, and that's one of the reasons why you see so many people kind of giving up on their dreams and the things that they want to pursue. It's not so much because they have definitive evidence that it's not working. It's because, they haven't really unpacked the things within them that are making them afraid to keep going forward and to collect that evidence they need to keep going. So I tried to, over the last few years of being in business, I've seen a lot of, I want to say, foolishness online about like what it takes to build your business, and also foolishness in terms of coaching and how to help people with that. So I've always just been just really determined to stay true to like doing it your way and not being afraid to make mistakes and to fail, because you want to learn from that and that will help propel you forward. My entire life I had been like the good student, the good church girl, like, the good employee. And so through this process, I've done so much work of having to shed that identity, because in order for me to propel forward, I've had to basically get to a point where people that I had learned from and had looked up to, I got to a point where I was like, wait a minute, I've passed you at this point, or I disagree with you on all of these different things, and it's time for me to do something different. And that was really hard because it's not really something that is like celebrated in the world, really, of like, oh yeah, outgrowing your teachers and telling them they're wrong and moving away from them. Like it's not something that is looked at as, oh, this is a great thing. It's like, oh, something's gone terribly wrong. So but it's been an incredible journey. And yeah, I've learned so much about myself. It definitely was not all the things I know now, and the relationship I have with myself and with developing my own intuition. I did not think that I would be doing these things or achieving these things back in 2020, when all I wanted was 1,000 subscribers for my YouTube channel.
Mhm,
I've always been like really terrible at jump rope or double dutch or I had no creativity, no core like coordination. So I'm looking at Brandy, and Brandy's like ready to like jump in and like ask you so much questions, especially when you talked about the zodiac and I knew it too well. So she was like, wait a minute, you're my people.
No, I was active listening, by the
Yeah.
way. I was active listening. But she's right. I do have so many questions. Like you
I know you
touched
do
on
well.
so much. I don't even know where to start to unpack. But I guess when we're talking about like career rebels and the people who are in our community who is trying to make the pivot the same way that you did out of a toxic corporate situation. And for some people, maybe it's not just toxic, maybe it's just that they want to do something that's more fulfilling or whatever the case. There's always challenges with that, obviously. I mean, and we always say that fear is a huge, what we call a destroyer, the thing that keeps people from moving to the next step. So I want to hear more about how you got yourself through some of the challenges that making that leap, being 6 months out of work. And I know what it's like to get it. We're feeling it right now in terms of paycheck or go and do something more fulfilling kind of thing, right? So what kind of challenges did you encounter, and how did you overcome them?
That's a great question. And I think that it looks different at different parts of my journey, but in the very beginning, because I was so new to just deciding to just go off, leave the path I had been on for so long, it took a lot of grieving. I didn't recognize it as grieving at the time, but it was the process of shedding that identity of what I thought my HR career was going to do for me and what I thought it was going to give me. It was a lot of tears. It was a lot of tears, a lot of, I want to say, like, shame, a lot of just processing these emotions that did not feel good at all, but letting them out and just allowing myself to be sad and to just be upset and to be, I almost want to say, in despair. And honestly, it's like there were so many people who were out of work for so much longer, like 6 months in the grand scheme is not that big of a deal. But in the moment, it was the end of the world to me. So allowing myself to just grieve and just get through that was hugely important, because when I was doing that, it allowed me to open up space to look for something new, to try something creative. And the first few videos on my YouTube channel were all over the place about absolutely the most random things. I think one of my videos early on was like me like doing like a short story, like a scary short story with some b-roll. It was wild, but it was just like just allowing myself the space to do whatever I felt like, because it just helped me to explore. But I wouldn't have had that space if I didn't allow myself to grieve just the loss of what, I thought that HR would have been for me.
I love
Now,
that.
moving into entrepreneurship. So you mentioned about being the good student, the good kid, the good all of that. So a lot of folks that go into entrepreneurship or fear going into entrepreneurship is because they grow up saying you have to work in a job, a 9 to 5, and have a salary after you get your degree to be successful. So did you have to overcome anything, and how did you navigate it, like changing some of like your family's views on you starting your own business, especially after COVID, which you mentioned everyone was creating a business online?
Yeah, it's interesting thing for me personally, because I've always been, Capricorn sun. I've always been that person where if I say I'm going to do something, I just do it. And my family and friends are just like, yeah, of course you're just going to do it. So personally, I have to say I did not face a ton of pushback from family or friends. But also too, I was very much determined to still get a job so that I wouldn't put too much pressure on my business. Like that was important for me early on, because I knew, me personally, I would be uncomfortable if I didn't have a steady paycheck coming in while still trying to create some type of steadiness in my business. So I was doing both at the same time. And that for me helped alleviate some of that burden of the risk that can be associated with starting out in entrepreneurship that's just so new and just so vast and so many moving pieces and components. So that was helpful for me. And, as time went on, I would start to develop some like resentfulness, because my big like dream was to leave HR completely and to just do my business. And so eventually I had to get to a point where I could hold space for them both and hold space for, the entrepreneur version of me. Like, how would I approach my 9 to 5? And how, if I can approach it differently in a way that actually does create space for me, then maybe it doesn't have to be a problem while I still also build my dreams. So that was it. Definitely, that shift did not happen overnight. It took quite a bit of time to actually get to that space of comfort of being able to hold both, and then just seeing like, okay, my job is, I get to actually get creative in some ways with the work that I do, and it's just another asset, just another income source. And then as my business grows, my asset sources will be shifting. So it definitely took a lot of self-coaching. I want to say it's like that's one of the best things about, I want to say, being a coach, is that like you have these tools that you can also use on yourself to help you move through the things that you're dealing with. So yeah, it was hard.
I think that she got that package that she was waiting for. I have so many other questions too. So I'm waiting for her to come back because I'm so interested. And so I don't know if I got into this too. So we're still working full time. And so we have corporate, we're both in operations. She's more more sales facing in a smaller boutique firm. And I'm more corporation and do more operations for like departments. And we're building Misfits Unplugged, and we want to leave that job obviously in the full time and join this, and we have all the future aspirations for this. So I would love to know more about the pivot and the going full time. Welcome back.
Thank you. Take it easy.
I also need you to explain to me the sun and the moon and all of the stuff that she's talking about.
Oh, listen, if you want to do a whole other YouTube, listen,
that's going to be your
and I'm listening
corner.
to you because I'm a Capricorn rising. Okay.
Oh,
so, yeah.
So you get it. You get it.
Yeah. So I get it. Yes, I get it.
No, I need to understand now. I'm a Scorpio and I was born in the morning. What am I?
Well, we need more information than that.
Yeah.
Next time.
We're talking planets now, right? So
we
need to know your moon, your red.
I feel like
don't worry, I'll do your chart. If you tell me what time of day you were born and all that stuff, I can figure it out for you.
Yes.
And we'll talk.
Yep. It'll just open your eyes like, wow, that makes sense.
Pisces sun, Capricorn rising, Cancer moon.
It's all so crazy. Even like when I did the disc and it was like, this is the type of leader you are. And I was like, you don't know me.
Yeah, I'm sure you got Gemini in there somewhere. I don't know where, but she's definitely got Gemini in there somewhere.
I don't like how you're saying that.
No, I mean, it's a good thing. Well, so I'm going to pivot a little bit because I like the tagline of the sort of being the non-capitalistic entrepreneurial coach. So I think I kind of know what that is, but for our listeners, I want you to explain in your own words what that means and what are the principles behind it and what you actually teach as far as that's concerned.
Yeah.
She also stole my next question. Because I literally have your definition here of the capitalist, and I was going to go into it, but all right, Brandy.
You're on the same wavelength.
Yeah. We're twins. I don't know if you know.
This is a great question because a lot of, I want to say, like, intellectual chaos happens on these online streets because we're not on the same page about how we're defining terms. So when I think of capitalism, I think of putting profits and money over people, like over yourself, over your clients and customers, over your employees. Like that's what I think of when I think of capitalism, because those are the effects that we have seen in how the system works and the issues we're having with wages and all of that. And I like to define myself as an anti-capitalist entrepreneur because I like to live by the I like to be guided by the northern North Star of putting people over profits. And that includes like my well-being, the well-being of the people I serve, like the well-being of any potential like vendors or partners that I work with. Because when you do that, well, first off, we're all human beings and we're not put on this planet just to create profits for some conglomerate. Like we're here to live and to be, to love, to be loved, to create, to do, like to live life. So one, that's just, I just personally feel like that is just our reason for being here, is to just not be solely focused on creating profits. But also, too, on the business side of things, when you focus on the people, you end up making more profit. Like it's like when you try so hard to cut corners and to take advantage of people, like it always works against you. Like you could make so much more money if that really is your main goal. You can make more money by actually caring about your people, by actually putting them first. But it's just because we live in this like scarcity driven society of how I got to get mine before you get it. Businesses take advantage of people because they're just too afraid to see what could be possible if they actually like cared for their people and put their needs first. So that's why I like to label myself as like an anti-capitalist entrepreneur. And because, capitalism is literally the air that we breathe in, it's just the only thing we've known. I don't think there is necessarily a quote unquote a rival. Like I'm always in the process of continuing to unlearn how capitalism has shaped my worldview and the way I approach things. And so it's a continual process, but a process that I want to do because it's of value to me. So I try to, so for instance, in the work that I do in my business, I'm all about like client results. I feel like, especially in the online business space, especially in like the business coaching space, there's a lot of gurus and coaches and these courses and programs that really are just about their bottom line. Like they're not actually trying to help you. They just want to quickly see how much money they can get in before you realize that you've been duped. And then they'll put on a pedestal the 2% of the people in their program that are actually winning, but it has nothing to do with them. It's really about the circumstances they already had to begin with. And I just think that's really shitty. It's like, I don't want to do that. Like in the work that I do, and that's really what even led me in the very beginnings of my business journey to start telling my mentors to go kick rocks, is because like I would see this stuff and I'm like, this is not, like, I don't like this. This is not how it should be. So that led me on my own journey to really get better at coaching, to start really thinking critically about the things I was learning, and to really start carving out my own path, because it's just not common to find, especially business-based resources and support that do actually care about your results, or even the results that could be possible. It's kind of like a complacency of like, oh, well, the program that I was in, only like 2% got what they were promised, so that's just the way it is. And it's like, no, that does not have to be the way it is. Like we can look for something better.
So I love that, because when you are in sales, so we're in insurance industry, and most industries teach you to sell to the client's pain points, right? Speak to them. So for us, it's let's talk about your premature, death, and how are you going to provide, like creating the sense of urgency and fear. So they're buying in that kind of sense of mindset. So in hearing you, and that's why I love these, because you learn from each person we talk to.
Yeah.
It's about unraveling that and rethinking it about it. Like, and you're absolutely right about the way that it is approached, and the way that if things change, that the end client would get more out of it versus just profit. So I really love that bit of information. Before we asked our wrap-up question would be, what experiences did you have that push you into this specific space? So you talked about you didn't enjoy, HR. So you obviously, there was something that you experienced there. And then your philosophy, especially since you're so passionate about it, what drove you in this direction? Was it how you grew up, and that's what, or is it life experience?
That's a good question. I think it's definitely a bit of nature and nurture, I want to say. I think that I have always kind of had, for better or worse, this like passionate, just like opinion of what I thought was right and wrong. It's just like, if something just very clearly just seems wrong to me, especially if it feels like people are being taken advantage of, I'm just like, my spidey senses go off, and I'm just like, what the heck is happening? And also being a Black woman, it's like, you just see like the bullshit we have to go through living in the United States, and just the ways that our community is just taken advantage of and just put under these systems of oppression that just keep us just stuck and just keep us small. And I would volunteer in different nonprofit organizations that I at the time thought was doing like important work to uplift our communities. And I just always just felt strongly that that was something I really wanted to do. And in HR, it felt like, okay, well, everyone's got to work. And so HR is really the place where we help to make work life better for people, and where we can do things like, if someone is hurting someone else, or if a group of people are being marginalized at work, like that's the space where I can make a difference. I learned that's not entirely the case. So it's just, I feel like my journey has definitely been affected and guided by for the best, just a sense of just wanting to help people who I just feel like are being taken advantage of, and just making sure that there's just awareness brought to that, and that I can do the best that I can do to help just make things better. And in certain roles, there's only really so much power you actually have, especially at like an employer. But, in your own business, which is why I personally just love it, is just the freedom to be able to, like, whenever the heck I want to, I can speak truth to power. And it's just going to live right there. And maybe
I
I'll
like that.
boost it. So it's just like, there's like, you can
That's
say
right.
something wild in my comments if you want to, but you're going to get blocked. And I'm going. So yeah, I think that is also just I think the freedom aspect too. So Sagittarius moon, I
Oh
will
my.
it's like I will be free and I will achieve freedom methodically and with extreme determination.
Yep, yep. And enthusiastically.
Yes.
Got it, got it, got it. Well, so I have one last question, which will probably roll into probably our last, question. And it's that you have such a strong mission. I'm curious as to whether you have to convert your clients into taking on that philosophy, or if your brand automatically pulls those kinds of people to you.
I love that. So I would say it's a little bit of both, actually. And like because I'm pretty loud and proud with the brand of it all, I do attract the people who are like, oh yeah, this is a safe space because I feel this way too. Like I can't stand capitalism or white supremacy culture. And then for the people who have no idea what the heck I'm talking about, and they just come to me because, for instance, they really just want to be able to create more content and be more consistent with it, and they don't know why. It's through the coaching that they see the things that have been holding them back. And for most people, I almost want to say all people, but for most people, I'll leave it there. Like through the coaching process, when you start to uncover like limiting beliefs, things that are making you feel like stuck or fearful, it's often attached to a tenet of white supremacy. You just don't know that's what it's called. It's like you just perceive it as like, I'm just afraid of saying the wrong thing. And so I don't want to post something and let it permanently live on my Instagram page because, like, what if someone calls me out on it? Like a tenet of white supremacy is there's only one right way. And so it's like, you don't know that because that's the air that we breathe, that's the thinking that's in you that's keeping you stuck. So, in session, I'm not going to tell you, oh, well, you're not moving forward because you think this and it's a tenet of white supremacy. No, I'm just saying, hey, this is what you just said to me. So what comes up for you? And so because they now have the realization, if they happen to keep looking at my other content, they connect the dots for themselves. Like for me, when I first started, when I was first introduced to the world of coaching, I had no idea what white supremacy culture was. Like I had heard of like the term before, but in like also the most like extreme of cases, but I had never understood that just like how I was living my life on a day-to-day basis, like the things that made me just not create space for myself and to want to just go up the ladder and to chase these things that just weren't making me happy. I had no idea that there was a name for them, that there was something that was connected to it. And I think all of everything that came out of 2020, especially with all of the shootings and the protesting and Black Lives Matter, like that's when all of like that literature and that research and those resources were really just at our disposal. And so now it's like, okay, well, now that I see it, I can't unsee it. It's there. So yeah, so I'd say it's a bit of both. I think that more people now are more aware of it than they were before. And so when they start to see how it actually manifests in themselves, then that also creates that deeper understanding of, oh, and this is where that came from. It's not mine. It's not my story to hold, and I don't want it anymore.
Gotcha.
So, Liz, as we wrap up the episode, I would love to get some words of wisdom from you of what you would give, well, the Liz that started this entrepreneur journey. What advice would you give her on this path that you have already learned and grown on?
Yeah, I think the number one thing I would love to tell myself, and I know she would not receive it at all, would be to just trust the process. Like, trust yourself and trust the process. And she would tell me to go somewhere with that. So I would add an additional baby step layer of, like thinking of just leaving her with the question of like, what if more is possible? Like, just like, what if? And I think that that's a nice, helpful go-between for anyone who feels like they logically know they need to trust the process. They logically know that they need to trust themselves, but they're just not quite sure how to step into that exactly. I think the first step is when you think about what is it you want to do or what you would like to do, your first instinct is to think the worst case scenario. But to also ask yourself, well, what if it won't be that bad? What if something good happens? What if I'm okay afterwards? Yeah.
I love that. Thank you for your honesty and being open and sharing your growth, your path, your upbringing, and all of everything that's in between of all your goodness. Now, where can any of our listeners find you? What is your social media, email? Like, what is your preferred method if anyone wants to continue on with you in this coaching, or just stay connected?
Yeah. So I am on Instagram most of the time at The Other Liz Walker. Or you can also check me out on YouTube at The Other Liz Walker as well. I offer one-on-one business coaching, and I also host workshops periodically. So for the next few months, I'm doing a workshop focused on reels. So helping you to be able to take your ideas to posted reels in 10 minutes or less, so you can stop overthinking, worrying about the tech rabbit holes and all that stuff, and get more visibility.
Thank you so
That's
much
awesome.
for joining us today. We really appreciate all your time.
Thank you.